I kept getting a strong pulling and tugging that God wanted me to go on a mission trip. And whether I was searching for verses or not, or studying about missions and evangelism or not, I kept reading these verses that would convict me. I had before gone through a list of these with you, and I had them listed on the PowerPoint, but we'll just go through them real quickly. Matthew 24:14, Matthew 20:28, and Matthew 28:19. Those are all verses that talk about preaching the gospel in the world, witnessing to heathens and to our neighbors, and the Great Commission. And in James 1:27, it talks about visiting the orphans and widows in their affliction. And in James 2:17, faith without works is dead. In Mark 10:45, it talks about being called to be Christ-like. And in being called to be Christ-like, I did have to really start thinking about that one a lot. What did that mean to me personally? Well, for all of us, being called to be Christ-like, it says in John 15:12, we're to love one another. Even in the Old Testament, it talks about going out and talking to the heathens. So missions and evangelism is not a new idea by any means. And when it talks in Proverbs about being a good wife and tells me that I need to open my hands to the needy and reach out to the poor, that was kind of one of the last ones that really told me, yeah, you have to do this. For me, what I kept hearing in all of these things are, we should go and more than preach the gospel, but minister to the people in the world, even the heathens. Open our hands to the poor and reach out to the needy, even the homeless in our own communities. Visit the orphans and widows in their affliction, not expect them to walk through our doors. We are called to be Christ-like, to love one another, to show it in our actions, and even more than that, in 1 Peter 3, it says that we should be prepared to give an explanation to people of why we have hope for this world. This is all part of evangelism and missions. So why Haiti? I really don't know, except that I kept hearing about it and reading about it and talking to my friend Jackie Frisch in Toledo. I just felt drawn to Haiti, so I started looking things up. And some of the statistics I found out is that here's this little country that is the only fourth world country in our hemisphere. It's only 700 miles from Florida. That's closer than from here to Disney World. And there are these people, there's 10.1 million people there, and about half of them are under 20 years old. They still haven't recovered from the earthquake, and from what I saw, I'm not sure they will, without a lot of help. The government does things to look good, but we need to go in and do things also. They share the island with Dominican Republic, and like half of the children are not vaccinated. That's a huge thing here. We can't even go to school without being vaccinated or have a special paper signed. 17% of the children are under 5 years old. I'm sorry, 17% of the children under 5 years old are malnourished. And only about 54% of the population has access to safe drinking water. 12% of the people have access to electric, and another 10% kind of hack into that illegally. So it's really not very safe, but most everyone has a small generator if they have any power at all. 53% of the people over 15 probably can't read and write. There are only about 67% of the children that actually even sign up for what is our equivalent to elementary school. and maybe 30% of those reach 6th grade. The unemployment rate is horrible. Although half of the people work in agriculture, which they don't consider like in their jobs when they're calculating these things. They set up booths at the side of the road and they sell their goods to each other most of the time. And 80% of the people in the country live below poverty level. 78% of that 10.1 million people live on $2 or less a day. So I thought about it, prayed about it. Russ and I talked, and I said okay to God. But I still had that control issue thing. So I made a plan. I was going to pray a lot about it, which I had been, but I was going to pray harder. I was going to talk to people and find other people interested. I was going to plan a trip for next summer. That'd give me plenty of time to do fundraising and planning and talking people in to go with me and learn as much as I could from Jackie. I could see if anyone else was interested in going, and I could get my passport, because at this point I didn't even have that. God had a different idea. He wanted me to help lead a trip. This last summer, I had 8 weeks to get ready and get my passport and go to Haiti and do a young woman's retreat. And all of a sudden I was told, oh, and by the way, you're writing that. That didn't cause a lot of anxiety. Like most of us, I questioned and challenged God. No way, I don't know the language, I don't know how to lead, I've never been there, how can I do this? I kept repeating, I don't know the language. And to Haiti, we don't have the money to go to Haiti. How in the world am I going to go to Haiti? And again, I don't know the language, I don't have a passport. And do a retreat? That takes a lot of money, a long time to raise that kind of money. And quite honestly, to take teenage girls away from the orphanage, girls I don't know and I don't speak their language, it's a little bit scary. So I admitted to God, I'm really nervous about this. I'm really, really nervous. God's answer was, it's okay, I'll calm you. Ryan had planned to go with another group the week before. That trip got canceled. So instead of me going with a few other people down there and leading them in an area I didn't know, Ryan was going with us. That helped. And God assured me he would provide. And he did. He provided over and over and over again. I had pictures of piles of things that were donated from here and from other people. The fundraiser was awesome. Everything went so well. So I'm like, okay, God, that's all right, but write a study? So I fussed with God about 2 weeks about that one, because I was still trying to take control. Well, one day I finally sat down and said, okay, I have to put something together. So I sat down so I could get some ideas. And I started looking through the Bible, and I started talking to God about how I can't possibly do this. 2 hours later, I got up and I had a 3-part study with Bible verses, a craft that went along with the study. And I don't know how many of you would realize how amazing that is, but to me that's amazing. I don't write. I'm not a crafty person. If you lay stuff in front of me with directions, I can do it, but I can't make up crafts. So God provided all of these things. And the fact that you were all supportive and prayed, that just gave me like the fuel to continue. God has taken life experiences all through my life and taught me and transformed me according to his plan, not mine. God transforms individuals and groups, churches and communities when we ask him. In Philippians, last week we talked about change, not being selfish, serving others, and becoming one, or of one mind together. Pastor Stephen said something in Sunday school last week, though, that really made me start to think. And he said that there are more disciples, active disciple churches in the Congo than in the U.S. I really didn't know why, but when we talked about it, he said that it's probably because we learn to go and not dictate to people. We learn to go and share and love people and work beside them to learn how to help themselves, to show God's love. We became one body with them. And that's kind of what we need to do. We need to become one body with each other because we need all those body parts. And one job is not anywhere more important than another job. A good example is a girl that lives at the orphanage, Danny. Danny is a nursing student that they've gotten away with letting her still live at the orphanage, even though she's older than she's supposed to be living there. But she's a nursing student. She gets up every day and she walks to the school and she studies from 8 to 12 and she walks back to the orphanage and she gets cleaned up and puts on one of those old-fashioned white nurses' uniforms. And she walks to the hospital and does clinical work from 1 to 6. And she walks home and still has to study and do her chores, which she pitches right in and does whatever anybody else is doing. She is always smiling. She always has time to participate in the evening worship with others. And I think it's because by helping her, we've provided her with hope by educating her. We've provided food for her. A lot of the kids in the villages don't eat. If they eat 2 meals a day, they're eating well. But by providing her all of these things, we've given her hope. Not just money, but we've shown her God's love. Our connection, I'm sure, is a divine connection. There are 3 women that love those children more than you will ever know, and more than I could even grasp. The 2 women that run the orphanage, Gerta and Mama Miguel, and my friend Jackie in Toledo. God's been working on this plan for a long time. And I realized it once I started thinking about this presentation. You see, Jackie and Aaron Frisch in Toledo, they're amazing people. And they have 3 sons of their own. They adopted 3 children from Toledo, and they fostered many others, but that's just the beginning of the story. They were also youth ministers, and they had a group in Lakai, Haiti, that they had taken down there on a mission trip, not to the orphanage. They had taken these children down there, and they were out for a walk. And Jackie saw the gates of the orphanage, and it says, Foyer d'Enfants. I didn't know what that meant, but that tells you that that's an orphanage. It's the door to children. And she just felt, her and Aaron had been talking about, they felt that they needed to adopt from Haiti. And when they talked, they both were thinking the number 5. And not only 5, but 5 boys. So she goes in this orphanage and she talks to these women and finds out how desperate they are to try to take care of these children and educate them. Gerta's a teacher and she wants to make sure they're all educated. And the problem they were having was the money situation, and they wanted to turn it into an all-girl orphanage. The only problem was they had 5 boys that they wanted to find a good home for. When Jackie told me this story, it kind of gave me goosebumps because she said we had talked about adopting 5 boys. Well, they went back to Toledo. They ended up adopting the 5 boys, but because their hearts were there and they fell in love with the orphanage, they decided to start an organization. So Aaron and Jackie started the Hearts and Hands of Heroes in Toledo. Because of their interest, other groups in Toledo found out about it. There is a Rotary Club in Toledo that provided the orphanage with clean drinking water. They have a well there of their own. They not only fell in love with 5 boys, but they fell in love with the orphanage and decided to sponsor them through Hearts and Hands. Through Hearts and Hands, each of the children at the orphanage is sponsored, not just for their food, but for everything that they need, including their education. Because of this connection, a girl from Jackson Township was in Toledo, working in Toledo, met Aaron and Jackie. She now is teaching English in Haiti. Her family has gone to visit her, fell in love with the orphanage, fell in love with the children, and they will soon have 4 Haitian daughters. Because of that connection and their love for the children, Ryan got involved, and now I've been there. I don't think that that was just a coincidence. I think this was God's plan all along. I don't believe in coincidence as much as I do transformation. We're now sponsoring Danny. So I think God had that planned. There was an instant connection when I met Danny, not just because we're both wanting to be nurses. There was something there. And I think God put that there. What does God have planned next? Transformation? How will we change? Where will we change? I've seen subtle changes over the last 34 years. I can't believe we've been here that long. But never as many as in the last 3 or 4 years. We all do so many missions every day. We all have different callings, different jobs, places we serve, and one is no more important than the other. Whether at home, work, volunteering, praying, donating, or taking time to sit and pray with or for someone in need. Something as simple as carrying one of these mugs with us to work can start a conversation that could lead to us sharing our faith or inviting someone to our worship service. Excuse me. So I can't believe that one job is more important than another. I think sometimes the jobs of parents is the biggest evangelistic job that we can do. When we follow God's lead, we have no idea how far we can reach with that, how far God will reach with that. Our saying yes can influence others and in turn can transform the lives of people that we don't even know. When you finally open up and say yes to God and let Him lead you instead of hanging on to that control, you need to hold on tight. You never know where or what He's going to ask you to do and what He's going to help you to do. And you'll be blessed much, much, much more than you feel like you gave. A thought for all of us is, how will we be transformed? What is God's plan for us? What is our next mission to be here this year and beyond this year? We should all be praying about this as a church and individually. What is my job to be? Praying, planning, donating, fundraising? Am I to pray about serving? Am I to serve? Every job is important, and we all have a part. We all are part of God's body. Are we to support missions, or are we to plan a mission trip? It is something that we can't answer today. I wouldn't even want to stand here and ask people to raise hands because this is a long decision-making process to do something like this. It is something that takes a whole lot of time, a whole lot of prayer, not a quick decision. If you're called to follow this path or any other service path, then be prepared It will be totally life-changing, transforming. It boggles my mind what God can do when you say okay and stop challenging Him. Whatever decision is made, God will guide and He'll provide everything that's needed for what He's calling you to do. Proverbs 3:6, seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. Especially since I couldn't show you my pictures of the children I've fallen in love with. Please come next Saturday. I'll try to set up on my iPad during the coffee hour the PowerPoint to run if you'd like to see it. But please come next Saturday. I'd love to show you our children. I would love to show you the orphanage and the country. The country's beautiful, and the people are too. It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad God allowed me to do it, and I'm so glad you all supported that trip. Thank you.